Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your drink or beverage of choice, cup of coffee, tea maybe, glass of red wine. Don't forget the cool head for the kids. Call your grandmama and your grandpapa, your mama and your papa, your auntie, your nene, your nieces and your nephews, your brothers and sisters, your neighbors and friends. Call everyone. Let them know that Simon Says is on. Buckle. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. I spent my Easter weekend at the games, the Carifta Games, at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. And I want to thank God for the Deacon Mitchell led administration who quickly built that stadium to host the games because NNP did nothing and they saw the need and we were going to host Carifta. So they built that Kirani James Stadium. It had to be that that's what happened because, of course, LNP did nothing. However, it's a great facility, and we're boasting of being able to host Carifta games almost back to back because of the facilities that Grenada has. And so Guyana, who was supposed to host the games, they said they couldn't meet the standards. They didn't. So they couldn't do the games. And Grenada put their hands up to host the games. We hosted it in 24. That was our turn. And we're back again in 2026 because we have this facility, this lovely facility, and that the athletes love to come to Grenada. We have hotels, and so we can host the games. All hotels were under the NNP administration as well. But they did nothing. They did nothing, right? It was a privilege. It was a privilege for to be there. I was disappointed. Our athletes were thrown into the lion's den, so to speak, and but I admire them. I congratulate them for their sportsmanship. Never once did they wave and look like they didn't want to be there. They fought a good fight, and we came out. We got a few medals. They struggled. They struggled, and they just need more coaching. I guess I don't know what they need, but the timing. I mean, they were not in their league, so to speak, when it came to. So we hosted a Carifta for Jamaica, um, the Bahamas, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and Guyana. To a lesser extent, they did very well, and especially in the middle distance events, they did very well. I so I can understand why the eagerness to host these games because you see, some of us get a chance to play ourselves in the VIP and up there, whilst the parents of the athletes, some of them could not attend the games. Why? They were given one ticket, the athletes, one ticket each. Now, God help if you have two parents, which I believe most of the athletes do have, or a sibling who would like to attend the games. But VIP full and overflowing. sister, cousin, friend, child, the whole works. This is the only time you see most of them, the cabinet members, out in events like that when they can splurge in the VIP. You know that's what is important for them. But the athletes get one ticket to share between their two parents. I don't know. They're supposed to strip it down the middle, rip it down the middle, and give half to their mommy and half to their daddy. But as I say, I congratulate them for their great sportsmanship, their perseverance. You know, you cannot fault them for trying. They did try. They did try their best. Not once did they look like they wanted to give up. They endured. The games we had no right hosting. And I don't care. This is just how I feel about it. And I'm sure the people who this NDC administration owes, the service provider, the contractors, especially the small contractors and so I sure they feel the same when the government is owing them, some of them over a year now, and is bluntly refusing to pay them, I have to say, right? Bluntly refusing to pay them. We had no right hosting the games costing us millions of dollars when it wasn't our turn. And if the World Athletic Association wanted Grenada to host it after all, then they pay for the students, for the athletes at the hotels, pay that, and pay for the hosting of the show, the monies that Grenada had to spend. If not, then you don't host it either. Why are we the richest island in the Caribbean? I believe it was Guyana's turn, and they said they couldn't afford to host it. They didn't have the facility, and so they're ready enough to do so, right? And I believe after them, it should have been Barbados. Why did Grenada have to put up their hand, costing us millions of dollars? And we owing everybody in town. Construction companies, contractors, service providers, hardware stores, credit unions, banks. So much so, they hid it from us. They refused to put it in the budget document, the estimates and of revenue and expenditure for 2026. It was not in there. Willfully so. So we people don't know the figure, how much people they owe, and the amount. How much is our local debt? How much local contracted service providers, etc., are we owing? We get the calls daily, some a few months, us go way back as a year plus. People they're owing. So we're trying to put our data together and do something to let the people know what's hidden behind the scenes. Again, congratulations to our athletes for trying your best, for doing, hanging in there. But you were thrown into the lions then. Last episode, I brought to you a video of what looked like the St. John's River at River Road. In fact, that was the St. John's River at River Road. You couldn't see river, all you saw was bush and lilies and stuff, and little algae, watery stuff running in some areas. Lest you forget, So the day after our episode was aired on Friday evening, April the 3rd, 2026, in the dust, this heartless administration had two needy youngsters down in the river without proper protection gears, trying to remove the lilies and other bushes from the river. At about 6:45 p.m., the two youngsters in the cold river trying to clean the river. No one from the Ministry of Infrastructure was there to guide them, to help them. No one from the Ministry of MIT was there to guide them, to help them. Just two youngsters from River Road being exploited by this NDC administration. Take a look. Yeah, exploitation at the highest level. And for what? What were you trying to do it before the games, before the Easter? Why couldn't it wait for? Because nobody's paying attention. These athletes coming, they're not paying attention to the river. It's us, right? Why couldn't it wait for Tuesday when the workers from the Ministry of Infrastructure, and if you want those guys to get a little change when you come down there to help, then you employ them to help. You know what next? What next would come from these people? More updates. Updates on the recommencement of the Willis Road project. Let's hear what the Minister Ron Redhead had to say.
A $22 million contract has been signed between the government of Grenada and the Reno Construction to resume works on the Constantine Willis Road, including the completion of two bridges. Member of Parliament for the area, Ron Redhead, explained that three companies were initially part of the arrangement. However, the contract was ultimately awarded to Reno Construction following the passing of Mr. Budlal and the financial constraints faced by another party. More in this report by Sherry and Noel.
The government of Grenada has taken an important step forward in a long-awaited restoration of the Constantine Willis Road. A new $22 million contract has been signed with Renault Construction Company under the Ministry of Infrastructure Development's new policy, Finance, Design, Build model, marking a fresh push to resume and complete this vital project, including the finishing of two key bridges. Honorable Ron Redhead, the Member of Parliament representing the area, shared some insight during a recent interview with the Government Information Service. He explained that the original plan involved three companies working together. Unfortunately, following the passing of Mr. Budlal and financial challenges faced by one of the partners, Renault Construction was awarded the contract independently.
We had to review. There was only one contractor at the time that could have taken it at that price tag, and it was Renault. The challenge is always to ensure that the contractor taking the job, they have the equipment, they have the capacity as well to be able to do some of the work themselves. And the government's new policy, which is to finance, build type model of reconstruction of roads, is something that we are satisfied that Renault does have the capacity and ability to take care of. So I want to commend the Ministry of Infrastructure. I think they spent umpteen of times. I want to commend the recent outgoing CTO, Mr. Kevin Blanche, for the dedication towards this review and revision of the project itself. Well, the scope of work certainly is something we're looking to be around 6 to 8 months to complete. Essentially, it's to repair along the main residential area of Willis, all the gaps, the drains, etc., pave the road, widen the path right here at this initial bridge, and then target outside Constantine Road in particular. I think this project redesign, so to speak, is going to be a bit better than what originally was conceptualized with the original project and its scope. And it's also repair a number of different areas, including this bridge here, which is adjacent to the school. So the intention is that once we stick to the plan and the contractor is ready to start and commences, most importantly, everything should take almost be like clockwork to take the 6 to 8 months to complete.
Honorable Redhead also shared that in principle, there have already been discussions between the contractor, his office, and the Royal Grenada Police Force to build a solid working understanding that will make it easier to manage traffic flow during the ongoing construction works.
There are three main areas of this project where properties ought to be acquired to be able to get the desired results, and it involves the widening. So you have Mr. Andrew and the Methodist Church on the outside, the Constantine and Vendom Junction. You have Mr. Superville, where we are standing here right now, and you also have to just higher up from Mr. Superville, one of the other residents, where we would have to cut into the property to be able to widen the road along the hill going up. So essentially, it is something that we believe once commenced, it will take the 6 to 8 months, weather permitting, among other aspects and elements, to be able to complete. But we are very much satisfied. We want to engage residents as ASAP. We were here earlier on this week checking in with the gaps and so on that is outstanding, so that we could start the work along there, and that Renault, the new contractor, could be able to pave to get the work done. The essential part of it is to be able to ensure that we fix people's gaps.
The Renault construction team, he says, will not be demolishing the existing structures already in place for the two bridges. However, with the redesigned drawings, some further alignment of the road will have to be done.
Renault is the one looking at it. So far, it is clear that we will have to continue. So the original acquisition and compensation for Mr. Superville, and I want to place on record Mr. Superville's patience with this whole process, which we inherited to now, is something that we want to thank him for, and we are confident that this time around we will actually know when and how much he would be compensated for the property. The surveys were conducted earlier on this week as well, and so the intention is to keep the existing bridge base, and we may have to engage the school and the church property adjacent to be able to talk about the potential redesign. However, we'll have to keep the existing one.
According to the St. George Northeast MP, the resumption of construction works on the Constantine Willis Road will create employment for skilled workers in the neighborhood and surrounding villages. Honorable Redhead encourages interested individuals to make inquiries at the Reno Construction Company office in Boucherjou. Sharianne Noel for.
So that's it for our local contractors, with the exception of maybe one or two. I believe one of them, when it comes to getting work from the government of Grenada, since their new model, finance, design, build, and maintain model. And they know it. They cannot, our local contractors, they cannot afford that. They need their money as they go. They work, they did, and then they collect, and then they work again, and they collect. And so the government just refused to pay them what they owe them. And they gone with Reno, right? Because Reno can finance the job all the way to the end. So we all know that that project, the Constantine Willis New Hampshire Road project, was already ongoing before the 2022 elections. The company Hanover from Trinidad and Tobago. Hanover was contracted to do the construction of 12 roads and bridges combined. And so far, they have completed the Bel Air Road, the Telescope Road, the Laborie Road, Munich Bridge, and the St. George Estate Road. Roads in progress before the elections, by the time of the 2022 elections, roads in progress, La Pastora Road, Clabonnet Road, Redmond Road, and the Willis to Constantine Road. That's what, case in point now, right? Roads with incomplete design and yet to start: Old Wester Hall to Morndalis, Concord, and Brothers to Monk Ennis or Senis Road, right? Those are the roads to start, yet to start. You know, those guys, and I'm speaking of the cabinet of Grenada, the executive, from the prime minister and his cabinet. They were all novices when they came. Okay. And there is a give them a chance, they're young, whatever the case is. No, this is not you landscaping job or something like that. This is a country that we're dealing with, an entire country, right? But what is disturbing is that almost 4 years later, they have not learned, even from their mistakes, from mistakes made before while they came in, right? And there's no improvement. There's no improvement. Now, lest we forget the bus shed in Mount Gay, when Ron Redhead, then Minister Ron Redhead, decided to build bus shed on private property without speaking to the people, without government legally acquiring the property, which they can. He just decided he built in a bus shed. And what did he say to us? The only thing that could be held on that piece of land is a bus shed. And how the river went with piece of the land one time, and the government of Grenada did whatever, and a whole set of arrogance when he decided to build the bus shed on the people's property, right? He had to, the planning stopped him. At one point, the people put up a fence. He went to take down the fence because work was supposed to resume. And look at the state of the bus shed now. If you look on your screen, you would see what it looks like today. And we might have a video hanging around too of what it looks like up to date, right? Now, you would think he and his government would be more careful as they move into another project where they have to acquire lands belonging to private citizens. So from the news item played, the GIS news item played at the very beginning, you heard there that the Methodist Church, and some Mr. Andrew, I don't know if Mr. Andrew is connected to the Methodist Church or he's one of the persons owning the land, because he said the Methodist Church and Mr. Andrew. But the Methodist Church, because the Methodist Church people said they don't know who Mr. Andrew is. So I'm not sure if it's how he said it. It sounded like it was one of the same, or they're two separate people, the Methodist Church and Mr. Andrew. However, it was in that news item that the Methodist Church body saw the news that the government is going to acquire piece of their lands to put it's a roundabout where you have that Y when you're coming up to go if you're going to Vendome or over the hills, and then if you're taking the bottom road to go into Constantine Willis area, right? You know that when you coming out from Willis, if you want to go up to Vendome, it's a hard turn, and most times, if not all of the times, I don't know anybody that can do it. You have to stop and reverse or go down and swing up and turn and to go up the road. Okay, so it's needed, but the lands is not yours. You don't just make announcements of the people's lands and they don't know anything about it. The church body saw it on Facebook, just how some of us saw it, and that the project was beginning on Monday. The church have no idea who the MP spoke to, because they did call out the Methodist Church. Who they spoke to, and they proceeded to contact the MP Ron Reddit relating to their concerns. The government to acquire part of the Methodist Church lands without informing the church. Ron Redhead said he'll get back to them and never did. It never did. They continue to break the laws of the land. It's just rogue. It's rogue ministers, rogue. Everybody just doing what they want and doing their own thing. As I understand it, the church here in Grenada do not have the authority to say okay to giving of the lands. It is a foreign governing body. The superintendent minister of the church here in Grenada, he said he knows nothing about it. No one spoke to him, or no one spoke to anyone here on island. The company Hanover that started the Willis project was being paid $8.6 million, and but let's round it off at 8.6 million EC dollars. They had already done $3 million worth of works on the project that the new company Reno, who was awarded the new contract, by the way, for 22 million EC dollars. This new contract is costing us taxpayers $13.4 million EC dollars, costed us more than what the project costed before the Reno took over, got the new contract. Almost 300% increase in costs to taxpayers from $8.6 million to $22 million. And as I mentioned before, Hanover has already spent $3 million on 2 bridges, cub walls, driveways, walkways, retaining walls, sidewalks, heavy earthworks, surveying, etc. that Reno has benefited from on the project. Yet for all, the contracted cost is $13 million more. Government of Grenada is owing Hanover $25 million to date for work already done, not just on the Willis project, but throughout the island. Because remember, they had this contract for 12, I think it was, roads and bridges combined. So throughout Grenada, the government is owing Hanover Company $25 million, wanted them to settle for $7.5 million. Money is already spent. Want them to take $7.5 million and shut up, which of course they refuse. Well, you can only imagine what will come after this. It's not their money that's paying off people they owe. They've lost in court, and so they're just refusing to pay people. And it's not their money. So when they go to court and they lose, the government has to pay the money. We, the people, have to pay the money. More updates. I had this one I have to read from my phone here. It's a release put out by CCCCI, right? Consolidated Contractors Company Caribbean Inc. Outstanding payments by the government, Cliff Road project. The government has failed to meet its contractual payment obligations to CCCCI with 90% of the job completed. CCCCI has received only about 25% of the sums contractually due. CCCCI, as a local company, continues in good faith and with the interests of the Grenadian people at heart, has continued to carry out the project despite this lack of payment. The project cost is $16.5 million, and out of that, CCCI has received approximately $4 million. Outstanding payments by the government through Blue Road project. CCCCI completed this project in 2024 and in accordance with the terms of its contract with the government of Grenada. Remember when they were rushing to pave the road in the rain, in the storm, it was very rainy for when they were about to host the CARICOM heads right after Hurricane Beryl. Because remember, it was put off because of Hurricane Beryl. And right after, nothing was settled. Everything was still haywire. They wanted, and they hired them, CCCCI, to pave the roads in the rain. Remember that? Minister MIT was busy all over in the night. See the commitment of the people. Yeah. Well, this is where we are with that project. Now, CCCCI completed this project in 2024 and in accordance with the terms of its contract with the government of Grenada. Approximately 30% of the amount due to CCCI is outstanding by the government. The approximate sum Due is $1.5 million. Outstanding payments by the government, hot mix supply. CCCCI estimates that the government is indebted to it in the sum of approximately $3.5 million for the year 2025. In consideration of CCCI being awarded 3 contracts, namely 2 for River Road and 1 for the cliff, the government requested and CCI agreed to a discount on the cliff project, with CCI expecting, as agreed, the River Road project to be awarded. Let me read that again for y'all. In consideration of CCI being awarded 3 contracts, namely 2 for River Road and 1 for the cliff, the government requested that CCI agreed to a discount on the Cliff Road project. This thing is giving me hell here. On the Cliff Road project, with CCI expecting, as agreed, the River Road project to be awarded. In accordance with this agreement, the Cliff Road project price was subsequently reduced by approximately $3 million, but the government has yet to award the River Road projects to CCI in accordance with the agreement. Now, I had brought to you guys this $3 million discount thing, and I thought it was ludicrous. I didn't even believe it myself. But here, the company CCI is telling us that they did agree to what does that sound like to you? Not another bribery, right? I'm going to give you a $3 million discount. The government is involved in bribery, right? So that was part of the cliff deal. Another little hanky panky, to use the words of the Attorney General. We come into that, right? Going on there. Take 3 million, give us a $3 million discount, and we'll give you the project in River Road. What is that? Time, what did I say? Time and God? Yeah, time and God. So CCCI is just one of the many contracting companies or contractors or service providers that the government of Grenada is owing millions of dollars. We're not getting involved in the bribery part of it and the discount part of it. We're not getting involved in that. That's between CCCI and the government of Grenada. But what jumped out at me is that $3 million discount, right? That was given in exchange for the River Road project. And they're complaining to date, they gave the discount and they have not received the project. I also remember the advisor to the minister in the Ministry of Infrastructure, Mr. Rodney George, on a ride along talk show saying that it was him, that is he, Mr. Rodney George, who prepared in the contract, and all of that was an effort to pull wool over our eyes concerning the $115,000 bribery that Andy Williams took. Remember when it was hot in the air, and so he went on right along to try and cover for Andy. And so he said it was him who prepared the contract for the Cliff Road project and awarded CCI the contract, and that they, in fact, got a small discount. That is the government of Grenada. And I remember saying it wasn't a small discount. $3 million is not a small discount. I actually called in on that program. Now, it's just too much corruption. What Mr. Rodney George did not tell us, that is the advisor to the minister and the Ministry of Infrastructure, what he did not tell us is that the managing director of CCI, who won the contract, and him are buddies, real tight, real close. As an elderly person might say, they're bosom buddies. Too much corruption. So, Simon says wishes CCI good luck in retrieving their monies owed to them by the government of Grenada. They're owing all these people, I mean, it's a lot, but they hurriedly going to build a medical city. One service provider told me that the Prime Minister told him when he was trying to get his money, and he went to the Prime Minister said, good luck in retrieving your monies. The Prime Minister said to him, to the gentleman, sue us. Sue us. This is what the Prime Minister is saying to client, someone they owe a lot of money, right? And this is what he's saying. The private society told me, the Prime Minister said it to him, sue us. And that's why I said earlier on, when they say sue us, it's because it's not them their money. But he's been saying that. Remember that infamous town hall down at the Trade Center very early in the game?
Assuming office, we learned of the existence of a organization, and I always struggle with the name, so let me get a correct name. Have feet. Yes. So let me make sure I don't misquote the name and I give you the correct name. Well, the name changed, so I will give you the original name and the current name. We encountered an organization called Faith Organization for People's Development, Inc. Now, the organization is incorporated under the Companies Act as a not-for-profit company. Therefore, it should be engaged in philanthropic, charitable, religious helping, not to make a profit. Prior to that, it did a name change. Its original name was St. Andrew Southeast Development Organization, Inc. The learned Minister of Education ran for the beautiful constituency of St. Andrew Southeast. So when this entity was incorporated, it was incorporated as a not-for-profit organization called St. Andrew Southeast Development Organization, Inc. The name hints or suggests it was meant to help develop the constituency of St. Andrew Southeast. It subsequently metamorphosized, became a butterfly, and became the name Faith. But I just want to point out something. In 2 years, between 2020 and July of 2022, this company was paid $6.8 million by the government of Grenada. Now, in addition to that, the then cabinet of Grenada passed a cabinet resolution handing over 3 community centers located in St. Andrews Southeast to that same organization. Community centers meant for the community, meant for use of the people, was handed over to this company, to this not-for-profit company. Now, if you're a not-for-profit company, and if you could convince the government of Grenada in 2 years to give you $6.8 million, what are you providing to the people of Grenada? And how miraculously the only client you have is the government of Grenada. So what were the services they were providing? Apparently, sanitization services, spraying children's hands when they come to school, maybe wiping countertop or chair or whatever, I don't know. But in 2 years, they racked up $3 million in revenues. Not-for-profit companies are required to file financial statements at the company's registry. No financial statements have been filed for 2021, and I doubt any will be filed for 2022. But let's dig a little deeper. Last time I checked, the government of Grenada, sometime in February of 2022, dropped all protocols in relation to COVID-19. There was no mask wearing, there was no social distancing, there was no sanitization, there was no insistence on anybody spraying anything. So explain to me, between February and July, elections were in June, and July, what services could you possibly have been providing when it comes to sanitization and so on? And I'm simply pointing, those are facts. You can argue about contract and so on, that's fine. I'm a lawyer. We can get to court when the time comes. And who has to sue can sue. That's on the domestic front. Let me share on the international front.
I just wanted you all to hear I'm a lawyer, super, but so much things they brought back, so much things to me that I must comment. And the first thing I want to ask is, where are these people that was there, the oohs and the ahs and the we people? Where are they? Because the question need to ask, what happened to that investigation? And because you call out millions of dollars that the government was given to the company Faith to pay workers and to buy the material needed, whatever. Did he tell you all what exactly was being done and how much material cost, the stuff they needed to keep the place sanitized and all the schools of Grenada? Did he mention that so you could say, well, okay, put a little bit of perspective to the thing, just throwing out millions of dollars a day as if the government took these millions and just handed to them for nothing, for thank you, first of all. But he exaggerates, and this is something he does very well to deceive the people. Very, very well. He's very good at it, of deception. Very good at it, right? One. Now, Deacon Mitchell and his administration, they formed a not-for-profit, non-profit organization as well called Nation Builders. And our monies from the consolidated fund is also being given to Nation Builders. We don't know how much because they're not even telling us. They told us the initial sum they gave to Nation Builders. And we would also like to know if Nation Builders have other clients besides the government of Grenada. Well, we know Nation Builders are Orlando Romaine and Andy and them involved in this Nation Builders thing. Because Nation Builders is supposed to be dealing with the WASH program. By the way, they left so many undone wash programs in St. David's where they were. People have to now be fighting up to try and finish it off because they have no way to poop. They're fighting, they can't afford getting help, getting money to finish off the toilets, bathroom and toilets, the wash program that Nation Builders was doing out there in St. David's and probably elsewhere on the island too. But you know, St. David's was the pilot parish, right? Who besides the government of Grenada are clients of Nation Builders? So they use the faith pattern and have a talking about about the faith was if they're non for profit they should be religious and philanthropic and is Nation Builders religious and philanthropic? As he ain't telling us that now. They then coming to us about Nation Builders though. So it's just one of the same. And they're worse. And he complained and show you all kind of thing, exaggerate, show off to get into office. And immediately after he got into office, where are they now? Where are they now? Or where are we now? I should ask. Moving along, more updates, and we come to Project Polaris updates. So last week, I brought you my findings. A company named Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited. This company bought the lands that Project Polaris is supposed to be built on. The 84 acres of land, or is it 89 acres, as we originally told. And according to OPEC article, OPEC being one of the funders who loaned us 60 million US dollars towards Project Polaris, committed US 30 million thus far. According to this article, yes, it's only 30 million we got from OPEC thus far, not 60. According to this article, the highest risk of the project stem from the proposed civil works on 89 acres of land. According to the ministry or the Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, in the 2026 budget presentation, it was 83 acres of land.
Mr. Speaker, among the boldest and most transformative initiatives is Project Polaris, the construction of a new state-of-the-art climate-smart teaching hospital. Project Polaris will mark a turning point in our nation's history, offering world-class care, expanded specialist service, and advanced diagnosis capabilities that meet international standards. So far, we have secured 83 acres of land at Hopevale, the site of the new hospital and medical city, completed the detailed design study for the new hospital while working to finalize the procurement of the supervision consultant and the construction contractor and the financing framework for construction of the project, including a combination of concessional loans, equity injections, and philanthropic contributions. Regarding the latter, I am pleased to report that cabinet ministers have already begun voluntarily donating 1 month basic salary into a designated account established by one of our local banks for the purpose and will do so until the hospital is commissioned. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, Cabinet has established the Polaris Development Company Limited as a special purpose vehicle incorporated under the Companies Act of Grenada to ensure the smooth and effective implementation of this project. The wholly owned government company.
So you heard him there. He said it was 83 acres. And then on the 18th of March 2026, at the town hall in Westall Secondary School, we learned that the land was 84 acres.
How far? Because you said you've only cleared for this part of things. How far does the land go?
It's 84 acres, so it's quite a large extent of land. We are inviting people to come and participate in a site tour that will give you a real appreciation of what the 84 acres, the scope of the 84 acres, and really what it has to offer to this proposition. So we'll look forward to inviting people to come. We've got a really great lookout point that allows you to oversee a lot of the property. And so there's more, certainly more than what we can see here today. And that will continue to unfold as we continue with clearance and preparation.
You see, when you're not truthful, when you're not speaking the facts, every time you speak, you say something different because it's you making up the story as you go along. So right now, we're not sure how much lands we're dealing with. But as I learned and shared with you last episode, Thursday, the 2nd of April 2026, the company Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited was the one on the conveyance that purchased the 84 acres of land, right? So Asset Bank Limited purchased 84 acres of land. That's what we know of. That's for sure. We saw conveyance and everything. I also shared with you the fact that the monies used to purchase the lands came from the consolidated fund, meaning our taxpayers' money. The lands costed 36 million EC dollars. We were told we deposited $16 million to the vendor, Grenada Real Estate Cooperative. And since then, we were told by the government that the government acquired the lands. And we took it to mean that government of Grenada had paid off for the lands, all $36 million. However, the Prime Minister and his cabinet of ministers failed to tell us that they were owing $20 million. The balance, they were owing all of that, $20 million to the vendor. Even at the recent town hall held on the 18th of March 2026, or at the groundbreaking ceremony held on the 27th of March 2026, we were never told that one, a company acted on behalf of the government and purchased the lands, and we were never told that we were owing 20 million and that government bonds were given to the vendor as security for the 20 million owing. You all might remember me asking questions to the Prime Minister and his Project Polaris sponsor, Ms. Andrea St. Bernard, last week after I gave the information that I came across, and I show you proof of the information, the conveyance, all the legal documents prepared. And that's why I said I'm going to share it with you. It's out there. I didn't make it up, right? This company, Asset Bank Company Limited, bought the lands. Here is, unless you forget what I said here, it's a clip to show that I'm asking the question. We need to find out from the Prime Minister and Ms. Andrea St. Bernard who the company belongs to, because I know the director's name are just there, superficial. Superficial. As a matter of fact, one of them, I'm not even sure if he's still living in Grenada at the point. He was there when they came in, but I'm not sure where he's now. Right? Who that Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited belonged to, and why? Why did that company purchase the lands, the 84 acres of lands, without money? You ever hear about frying you in your own, right? They purchased the lands without. Why couldn't the government of Grenada purchase the 84 acres of land? Why a company had to be formed just for that purpose? Come clean. All the documents will be up on Simon Says channel. They're gonna be out there. It will be out there because the people need to know. People still need to know. The people still need to know. I also question who the lands belong to, because all the conveyance said it was Asset Bank Company Limited bought the lands, right? There was nothing there that said anything to do with the government of Grenada. Here is that clip. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the people need an explanation of that muddle up situation. Why was a company formed to purchase the lands for Project Polaris? Grenada Real Estate Corporation, it's its only client. Who does the land? That 84 acres of land, who does the land belong to? It says this company bought the lands. Well, I would say a private company. I don't know if you could call it a public company. I don't know, because we need the explanation. We need the explanation. But we're just asking for it. We just need to know why this partners, not Partners for Development. Partners for Development is you, Prime Minister, and Andrea. Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited. We need to know who are they and why did they purchase the lands, the 84 acres of lands, with our monies and our government bonds as security for the 22 million that is owing to the real estate corporation. So we are still waiting on the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, and his cabinet and their Project Polaris team, the spokesperson, the sponsor, project sponsor, Miss Andrea St. Bernard, to explain to the nation who is Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited and why did they purchase the 84 acres of land at Calavini Estates, and why couldn't the government of Grenada just do so under the government of the name, the government of Grenada? We just need as I said in one of my clips, there probably is an explanation, but we need it as a people for transparency's sake and accountability sake. We need to know. Now, we are yet to hear officially from the government of Grenada, whether he sends somebody to tell us, because he don't really like to speak to us. But it's election now, that's why you're seeing him in your face all the time, right? He don't really want to talk to us. He snipes at us. He's like, yeah. So if he don't want to come and talk to us because he don't like to be told or asked or questioned, so even if you send somebody, but we need an official thing, need a press conference, a release, whatever, to explain this saga. Now, a post was sent to me, made by Cindy Daughter, our Attorney General, which I should share with you. Of course, I'll share it with you. For those of you who have not seen it, and it reads, and it says, and it was on her Facebook page. This is Facebook, not for official. Why was the deed of the Project Polaris land prepared by the Attorney General, even if the lands are owned by a limited liability company? Answer: because the government, and as such people of Grenada, is the sole shareholder or owner of Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited. That is, government owns and controls 100% of the assets of the company. That's a faith company, right? The company was formed to hold certain key assets linked to priority development projects, including Project Polaris. We would like to know the other projects that this company has bought or linked to on behalf of the government. We would like to know who, and what they are. The company was formed to hold certain key assets linked to priority development projects, including Project Polaris. The directors of the company are the permanent secretaries in the Ministry of Finance and Agriculture and Lands, and the secretary of the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Legal Affairs. The Office of the Attorney General incorporated the company, and its registered office is that of the Office of the Attorney General. Well, I brought all of that to you last week. Setting up specific companies to deal with certain investments is normal in commercial dealings, even for governments. Right? Then she gets to be her own self. That's who she is really. Probe and project as much as you like. You will find no hanky-panky here. We are not like the rest. We don't do business with con men and fraudsters. And I understand that, because you all are the con men and the fraudsters. So you do business with yourselves. Yeah? We understand that. And everything we do is above board and the best interest of our people. Not true. But you can't fool the people anymore. They can see through the wool that you're pulling over their eyes. They can see through it. So Cindy's daughter sought to explain why her office, the Attorney General office, prepared the deed for the Project Polaris. Even if the lands are owned by a limited liability company, she said, Howard's, and the operative word here is owned. Even if the lands are owned by a limited liability company. She said that is so because the government and people of Grenada are the sole shareholders, owners of Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited. Now, if we are the sole shareholders of this company, how come we never knew of it? How come the people were never told about Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited? She went on to mention the directors without calling their names. So let me help her out there. The directors listed, two of them that was listed, our permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester, and the permanent secretary, or the then permanent secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, Mr. Aaron Francois, who has since retired from the service. Now, that post that Cindy Daughter made was not an official post. And it was just her bantering on Facebook like she usually do. Probe and project as much as you like. You will find no hanky-panky here. We are not like the rest. No, you're worse than the rest. Now, if Simon Says didn't come to you with her findings, with the findings, which, by the way, is factual, we would have never known that some company is trading us, is fronting us, the government of Grenada. And that's a fact. So if the state of Grenada owns the lands, why wasn't it gazetted, Madam Attorney General? All lands acquired by the state of Grenada for public purposes have to be gazetted by law. And secondly, according to Chapter 159, land acquisition, and I'm quoting, an act to authorize the acquisition of lands for public purposes, end of quote. It's headed Acquisition of Land Abandonment and Acquisition, Section 3, Acquisition of Land, subsection 1. If the Governor General, and I think let me get my glasses here so I can do that well. Good. The Governor General considers that any land should be acquired for a public purpose, he or she may cause the declaration to that effect to be made in the manner provided by the section, and the declaration shall be conclusive evidence that the land to which it relates is required for a public purpose. Section 2. Every declaration shall be published in 2 ordinary issues of the Gazette, and copies thereof shall be posted on one of the buildings, if any, on the land, or exhibited at suitable places. In the locality in which the land is situate, and in the declaration shall be specified the following particulars relating to the land which is to be acquired. None of that we have, right? A, the parish or district in which the land is situate. B, a description of the land given the proximate area and such other particulars as are necessary to identify the land. C, in cases where a plan has been prepared, the place where and the time when a plan of the land can be inspected. D, the public purpose for which the land is acquired. Whether the freehold, leasehold, or mortgage interest is being acquired. Section 3, upon the second publication of the declaration of the Gazette, as aforesaid, the land, if freehold shall vest absolutely in the crown, leasehold from the crown shall revert immediately with exclusive possession to the crown. Leasehold other than from the crown, the unexpected term of the lease shall vest in the crown, or the mortgage interest being acquired shall vest in the crown, and the crown shall, in accordance with the relevant provisions of the Constitution and of this act, make prompt payment of such full compensation as may be due. Nothing in this section shall be deemed to prevent the acquisition of lands for public purposes by private treaty. No. Where's the crown in all of this? Where's the gazetted? Where in the gazette? Which one? Where? Because this land, as the Attorney General said in her post, it belongs to Grenada. The company was acting on behalf of Grenada. We're okay with this, but tell us, come to us. Because if it's public, it's for public purposes, then it should have been gazetted. Right? And the Crown, the Governor General, has to be involved. So we still have some questions to ask, right? Where is this declaration? Such declaration shall. In law, shall means a requirement that must be obeyed. Was that section of the Land Acquisition Act obeyed? Madam Attorney General, at you. Bring the lawyer, come. I'm a lawyer. Sue me.
You can argue about contract and so on, that's fine. I'm a lawyer. We can get to court when the time comes. And who has to sue can sue.
So we're back to the same question. To whom does the 84 acres of land belong? Simple. Who's going to benefit from it? Then the silence that followed the 3 acres of land was bought and mortgaged by the company Partners for Development Incorporated, directors Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his project sponsor, special envoy, another word for ambassador, and advisor to the Prime Minister and the government of Grenada on investment and development. How ironic. Well suited. Miss Andrea St. Bernard. Partners for Development, Inc. on the 5th of August 2025 at 10:49 a.m. Conveyance of lot of land measuring 3 acres, 6 poles of Calavini Estate. Same land with the Polaris. Registered from Grenada Real Estate Corporation to Partners for Development, Inc., $1.5 million conveyance prepared by St. Louis and St. Louis, the law firm of the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Teddy St. Louis. A cabal it is, a cabal. The office where the rent collected from the Lottery Authority, remember that? Owned commercial property by the Lottery Authority on Melville Street, St. George's, was delivered. The rent was delivered to the law office of the Chief of Staff, Teddy St. Louis, or allegedly delivered. And we've been calling him and asking him to come out and deny or explain how and what happened. He never did. Now, maybe that property, commercial property, was bought by the Lottery Authority, but don't really belong to the Lottery Authority. Same as the Grenada Asset Bank thingy. So right? So maybe the building does not really belong to the Lottery Authority. Remember, I hinted that to you all before as well. Things happening, right? We getting somewhere. Now, he's also the owner and managing director of Icon, that company that brought in the 6,000 slings of cement, the shipment, where the first entry was canceled in the customs and excise department, and the second entry, the invoice was 60% less than the first one. That I say all of this to tell you that this law firm, St. Louis and St. Louis, was responsible. They prepared the conveyance for Prime Ministers Deacon Mitchell and Andrew St. Bernard's company, Partners for Development, Inc. On that same date, August the 5th, 2025, at 10:50 a.m., 1 minute later, after a mortgage of a lot of land measuring 3 acres, 6 poles of Calvini Estate registered from Partners and Development, Inc. to Grenada Real Estate Corporation in the amount of $1.250 million. Mortgage prepared by Mitchells and Company, the law firm of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. It's staying in the family. So Partners and Development, Inc., with Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Andrew St. Bernard as directors, borrowed their mortgage from the same company who sold them the lands. Grenada Real Estate Corporation Limited, 1.5 million mortgage to vendor on the same day for the $1.25 million. This Partner for Development, Inc. saga with Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Andrew St. Bernard is immoral, unprincipled, dishonorable, and unscrupulous, to say the least. An open, wide conflict of interest. Now, since then, since after a week ago, 8 days ago, there are more. This conveyance is made the first day of October 2024 between Grenada Real Estate Corporation, the vendor, and of the first part, and Neela Etienne, the Prime Minister's press secretary of the second part. If you look on the screen, I'm sharing the documents. I'm sharing it. Hearing called the third part, conveyance deed/deed prepared by Pauline Hannibal and associate attorney at law and perused on behalf of the vendor by Mitchell and Co., law firm of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. None shall escape. Further to that, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell had promised to build an NDC headquarters in that area as well. He promised, he said that no party should not have an headquarters and they would have, before the end of their term, NDC would have their headquarters. So there's a rush, right? In that same area as well, the piece by the entrance to the Calvini side of the bridge, I was told, belonged to the NDC. We have no documents for that one. We don't know if it was bought with the bulk, the 80. Oh God, all I think is Joe Kalalu, the 84 acres and cut off. The area left blank on the site plan in front of the hospital area is where the NDC headquarters is supposed to be built. If you look on the screen, you see a video showing you the area where the NDC headquarters. But everything was graded and bulldozed and prepared with the resources of the government of Grenada. So everything from the point where you see that red, it's a bottle actually that placed over the metal, that red bottle in the video, down to the road is for NDC headquarters. That the government and people money spent to clear up for the groundbreaking. Right now, not sure whose money is being spent for what. We are totally confused with this Project Polaris saga. How about the 74 acres to build the city? Who owns that plot? And who will own the city? Now, here's the project sponsor as she carefully explained to you what the city or what will happen at the city.
So what you're seeing before you is the 84 acres designed as what we are phrasing a medical city. The medical city, we're calling it a medical city because the cornerstone of the medical city is the new 250-bed, smart, climate-resilient general hospital. This is the general hospital in this area here. And what you're seeing here is the eastern main. So returning to the concept of purchasing and having control of the full site, there are several components that we're considering in the master site plan focusing on the hospital and what do we need for the best hospital experience and care for Grenada.
So she was correct to say what they concept a medical city, because the only medical thing that they're speaking of is the hospital that's on the other side of the bridge. The city, and we're not calling it a medical city because it's not a medical city. The city has hotel, amphitheater, spa, school, plaza, bank, supermarket, recreation grounds, senior citizens, gated community, parks, you name it. That's not a medical city, that's a city being built. So who owns the city? Who will own that city? She went on to say that the city creates a dynamic investment opportunity for Grenada, for some persons in Grenada. That's the point of the high-end hotel, an ecosystem of development opportunities for locals and foreigners. Here is Andrea St. Bernard.
Absolutely. So each piece, each component is thought through and planned to leverage the opportunity and build upon that so that we ultimately have an ecosystem of economic development opportunity, of investment opportunity for locals and for foreigners to come and participate. As we said, we are looking for private investors, private developers, business owners to come and share your ideas. There's a lot of space in the 84 acres. We've spent a lot of time with our master site planners to ensure that we understand the space and that we control it in the way that's most important for management, operation, and safeguarding of our flagship asset, the new hospital. So ensuring that we have the environmental mitigations happening throughout the space, ensuring that we have traffic flow that is appropriate always for the priority, which is hospital care, emergency services. That's all a big component of developing the 84 acres around the hospital. And we have certainly begun to do so. And I think it's quite spectacular. From the vantage point where we are, as I said, you can see an even further point, and I encourage persons to come and take the wellness climb to the top of the Hopevale Point to see which will give you an opportunity to see the broader 84 acres. This is another lookout point that gives you an opportunity to see what we call phase one of the medical city development. But as the site tour, we continue to develop it, the information, the renderings will all be added in. So it will be quite an experience to begin to understand the vision of what is Project Polaris.
Again, we ask, who does the 74 acres belong to? They are looking for private investors, private developers to come and share their ideas. Folks, question, who bought the 84 acres of land? But more importantly, who owns it? Is it the government and people of Grenada or the NDC cabal who really owns Project Polaris? Affectionately called the North Star. Lest we forget, 36 million was spent for the lands, 16 million down payment and 20 million owing. Grenada, the government bonds given to the vendor to secure the 20 million that's owing. 250 million USD for the hospital building. That's 667.5 million EC dollars. The hospital to be built on 10 acres, according to the project sponsor, Andrea Saint Bernard. She told us that only 10 acres would be used for the hospital out of the 84 acres. So we're questioning again the 74 acres. Let's hear Andrea Saint Bernard.
Grenadians, this is just the beginning. The first phase of Project Polaris will see the construction of the new General Hospital on approximately 10 acres that we're sitting on now.
So what do we know so far for sure? Fact, there is no record of the government and people of Grenada owning 84 acres of lands at Calavini Estates. The record shows that a company, Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited, bought the lands. Fact, there is no visible declaration of the acquired land for public purposes. Neither was there any publication, one nor two, nor gazetted as pronounced by law. Fact, there was another plot of land sold at Calavini Estates, Partners for Development Incorporated, of which Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Andrea Saint Bernard, the project sponsor of Project Polaris, are the directors of that company. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell signed the conveyance, and the St. Louis, the law firm of Teddy St. Louis, the chief of staff of the prime minister did the conveyance for that company. Fact, our government never told us that we were owing 20 million on the 84 acres of lands, and that our government bonds were given to the vendor, Grenada Real Estate Corporation, as security for the 20 million owing. Fact, there is no record of the government of Grenada purchasing and owning 84 acres of land at Calviny Estate. However, there is record of a company, Grenada Asset Bank Company Limited, with two directors listed, Mike Sylvester and Aaron Francois, as directors in that company. Folks, I want to share with you a few clips coming out of the groundbreaking ceremony for Project Polaris, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell.
Today, we are not just moving Earth, we are moving the nation of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique forward. To understand where we are going, we must look at where we began. For centuries, perhaps dating as far back as 1773, the colonial hospital, built initially by the French, which is now our general hospital, has been the silent watchman over St. George's. It survived the Great Fire of 1850. It weathered the winds of Janet and Ivan. It bore the weight of a revolution. And over those centuries, we made changes. We added wings, we expanded wards, we patched the roofs, we repaired, we painted, we plastered. But for too long, we have been trying to practice 21st century medicine in a 19th century shell. Our healthcare professionals have performed miracles with limited space. And our citizens have shown incredible patience. So today, we acknowledge that patchwork is no longer enough. The history of our healthcare is one of resilience, but its future must be one of excellence.
So deceiving. I'm sure those of you listening who is aware of the history of the General Hospital is sitting there with your bottom jaw dropped. The Prime Minister made it seem that the old General Hospital, that wooden structure that was there since the 18th century, is what is there as we speak. And it was just patched up and hollow, and it's just time to get rid of it. It withstood some fire, it withstood the Janet, Janet, Ivan, Beryl, Emily, you name them. It's not the same structure. We don't have a wooden structure anymore. So let us go back in time for a bit. The very first General Hospital was built in the 18th century. It was a British military hospital, and it was predominantly wood. It was a wooden structure. In 2002, November 2002, the refurbishment of the new hospital in a new concrete structure was built. Now, and of course, expansions were done. What we have now, with the exception of the new wing that now houses the emergency department, the laboratory, and other units, Of course, when Ivan passed, there was some further damage to the hospital. There was some damage to the hospital, and that was refurbished as well in 2005, 2006. Right? There was more refurbishment. So there were refurbishment and expansion. In 2014 to 2016, there was going up of the steel structure, and between 2018 to 19, the finishing up of the new wing. Everything done on the existing hospital to where it is now was done by an NMP administration, even though we had an NDC administration from 2008 to 2013. What we do know is that the actual structure of the hospital is not the issue. That is not the issue with the general hospital. The location, yes, right? But the real issue starts from administration, the administrative section of the hospital, to the stocking of human resource, equipment, implements, materials, and medicines. So we could build a fancy hospital. Remember during Beryl, the Samaritan Purse had a hospital up in Carriacou that took care of the people. What it was? A tent, a big tent. The structure is not the issue, right? This land on which we stand today, and this is Prime Minister Deacon speaking here, was acquired by the government of Grenada in 2023. Let's hear him.
This land on which we stand today was acquired in 2023 by the government of Grenada. This government, this administration came into office in 2022. In just 1 year after we assumed office, we purchased and designated this land for the new General Hospital. But I pause to acknowledge the Nichols family, led by Mr. Leroy Nichols and Mrs. Margaret Nichols, for agreeing to sell the land to the government of Grenada, and by extension, the citizens of Grenada, and for keeping this land intact since 2013, and for not cutting it up and selling it off in plots. Because in 2013, the then government of Grenada, which was then an administration led by the Honorable Tillman Thomas, had agreed with the same Nichols family to purchase this very said land to construct a general hospital. But it took 10 years of waiting, and a second chance came in 2023. And so I acknowledge a debt of gratitude to Mr. and Mrs. Nichols for recognizing the strategic importance of this land, and in effect for keeping it. They must have sensed deep down, sooner or later, that the tide of change was going to come.
And the tide of change will come again, that's for sure. Lands that in 2026, we still owing $20 million. And you see, when he spoke there proudly of us owning 84 acres of land, we didn't know then that we owe $20 million on that land. And for keeping this land intact since 2013, Since 2013. It would have been before that. The NDC lost the elections in 2013 to the NNP 15-0. The Prime Minister also made it sound like the Tillman Thomas administration was about to purchase 84 acres of land, which is furthest from the truth, more deception. First of all, there was never going to be a medical city, but a 184-bed general hospital with clinical teaching facilities estimated to cost US $67 million. That's 181 million EC dollars. We may not have even needed the 10 acres they plan on putting the North Star on. The construction was supposed to start in 2013 to be named Sir Eric Gary Memorial Hospital, according to their achievement booklets. Now, they did nothing as well. NDC did nothing. NNP, on returning, they did the new wing, where, and it's a lovely piece, a building. I've been in there and was totally recently. Well air conditioned, clean, and all of that. That new wing. So it's about improving on what you have until you get to the point where you comfortable that the general hospital would save lives whilst you build a new hospital, because it's a structure. Then you have to do the interior, you have to get the equipment, you have to get the resource, the human resource, and all of that. This thing is not going to take 3 years, as Ms. St. Bernard say. This thing is going to take us probably another 10 to 15 years, if at all it happens. So it's not about the structure. I admit and I agree that where the structure is, it's a bit of a hazard because the road is narrow and it's basically a one-way. Now that has changed, that hazard has changed since they turned the area into a one-way. You can the drive-through then into a one-way so that you can't exit where you enter in. It has improved the whole situation there a bit, right? But still we have the narrow roads, and so for, let's say, fire truck and all of that, it would make it difficult. And we agree on that the hospital needs to move from where it is. But we also agree that in the meantime, our lives matters. And you don't just ignore what's there and rush to build a new hospital to check a box and saying it would be ready in 2029. What kind of hospital would be built? An ordinary hospital cannot be built. Some houses take 3 years to build. The size, depending on the size of the house. A hospital is not just an ordinary building. Who are you trying to fool with that? Folks, the only reason why the Nichols family did not cut up the lands and sell it was because it could not have been done legally. Because it's rogue people we're dealing with. Legally. Not for the want of trying. They tried. You see, the lands was sold to the Nichols family many, many moons ago, way back in the day. Actually given, almost given away to them. I believe it was since in the era of Eric Matthew Gary administration. It was meant for agricultural purposes, and therefore was turned down by the previous administration when they tried selling the land for a housing community or commercial purposes. So the land was bought for next to nothing because it was agricultural lands way back then, and was then sold back to the government of Grenada for 36 million for construction. In fact, there were farmers on the land when it was time to prepare it for the groundbreaking ceremony. The lands the produce were bulldozed. They were bulldozed out of there. So to try and make as if the Tillman Thomas NDC was about to purchase 84 acres of lands in 2013 is deceptive. And he didn't just say it there at the launch. He went on to say it on Tuesday, the Tuesday after, at his podcast, DM the PM, on the 31st of March, 2026.
Long in the making. It's a project that it wasn't conceived by this administration. It was conceived, I think, many moons ago, and certainly the last NDC administration began to make enormous progress in getting to the point where they almost could have acquired the land, and really and truly, in our view, even when they lost power, there was no valid reasons for not proceeding with the project. So we feel it's 10 years late, but it's 10 years late, but not too late. And so I was just happy that we were able to make this milestone. And it's also to boost the confidence of the population in ourselves. This is not just about the government, this is about the country. And because for it to work while we're building the infrastructure, it will require the entire health sector to make it successful. It requires the entire population to support it, and it requires us, as I've said, to make sure that we become a much more healthy nation. So I'm happy that we were able to get this sort of first step on the way, but there's a lot of work. The work has actually now begun. I'm excited by the work, and I look forward to us really in 36 months or so being there for a ribbon cutting when the hospital itself is constructed, and we can begin the second stage of the process.
So he is trying to make us believe that the Tillman Thomas administration is going to purchase 84 acres of land. What they know about Medical City. And then when I saw Tillman Thomas sitting at the front, all smiles, pink in the face, when his administration got mentioned about the lands, it saddened me that he's going along with the deception of Deacon Mitchell. Someone I admired, someone I elevated, someone who spoke of integrity, accountability all the time. All of that went through the window with the bath water. Deception. His administration acquired agricultural lands to build a city. And they're talking food security. Mouth open, words jump out. It's the deception, of this gentleman, this guy, is worrying. And how comfortable he seems when he's deceiving the people or trying to deceive the people. It comes like a piece of cake for him. Just, stupid people want to believe that, or they believe it. But not for the want of trying. And of course, they are the gullible ones. They are the gullible ones. So after the episode was aired last week on the lands and the ownership, Consul General Zia Rahman thought he'd throw shades at me. If you look, if you See, read his post. It's clear. They can't seem to get over the mistake I made when I said 1,000 instead of million. It had nothing to do with the addition, but it was supposed to be millions, and they can't forget that. They'll take that to their grave, that I cannot count. It's all right. What I do know is that my listeners, my followers, my supporters of Simon Says, they understand what I say when I say it, right? And that's fine. And that's all I need. That's all I need. He commented on a post somewhere made about the land and the Project Polaris saga of the different companies. And I quote, "We are as informed as our sources of information if we take knowledge from people who struggle to read and do simple math. We can't expect to be misled." Have a great weekend and thumbs up. Guess what? Your Excellency, Zia Rahman, I bet I can read your bio to the people, showing them you are not qualified for the job that you now hold, but that you had already gotten the job. And sending your bio was just a formality, payback. And that I would definitely not make a mistake with the math when I explained to the people the fact that you are making more than $500,000 annually, and that we, the people of the state of Grenada, is paying for your children to go to private school in Dubai, and for you to live in a penthouse costing the people 18,000 plus for rent. So here we go, folks. This is the biography that Zia Rahman sent in to apply for the job of Consul General in Dubai after the 2022 general election, when it was after the elections, when it was payback time. And I would read here, born Zia Azam Rahman in San Fernando, Trinidad and Tobago, on the 31st day of July 1982, 11 Shawwal 1402, to father Ziad Azam Rahman from Trinidad and Tobago and mother Clary Rahman from Grenada. I am the product of two very hardworking and resilient individuals whose entrepreneurship afforded me a very blessed upbringing. I came to Grenada right after birth, where I lived my formative years. I graduated high school in Grenada and immediately started work in the family business until I decided to pursue a different career path. I attended Ridley College, where I did the Canadian equivalent of A levels, grades 12 and 13, in 1 year. I participated in the Ridley Cadet Corps. Thereafter, I studied political science at the University of Windsor in Canada, where I founded the UNICEF on-campus chapter and graduated with honors. I gained useful insights and experience participating in campaigns, during 2 federal elections, I moved back to Grenada to manage another political campaign at the constituency level in 2008, and subsequently returned to Canada to pursue an opportunity at the Fortune 500 company in Toronto. I began my business IT career as an analyst with the Canadian region and worked my way up to production, end user testing, debugging and debugging and rollout of new systems and tools across Brazil and the Philippines. I ended my career there as an end-to-end regional profit manager with responsibilities to the CFO and the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, from Maine to Florida. I taught myself a few programming languages to build my own platforms and began my own company, which later had a few mission shifts. I've invested in real estate and have created my own proprietary system that allows me to manage my business and investments from anywhere in the world. So my man is sitting in Dubai, twiddling his thumb when it comes to Grenada, and being able to practice his business from Dubai, right? He told us so. He didn't even try to hide it. I enjoy work that has the potential to positively impact upon the lives of as many people as possible. I believe in being a force for good in the world when we strive to enjoy what is good and abstain from what is not. My most recent objective has been to seek public office representing Grenada in an effort to broaden the scope of my impact and influence on imparting good to the greatest number for the longest time. I intend to use my post. This is a bio, but he knows he get the post already. I intend to use my post and any tools at my disposal to be of service to the growth, development, and prosperity of humanity. A person cannot truly be grateful to God Almighty if we are not grateful to people. It is with this mindset that I express how truly appreciative I am to my government and the government and people of the UAE for this tremendous opportunity. But this is your bio you sending in. It is with this mindset that I express how truly appreciative I am to my government and the government of the UAE for this tremendous opportunity. Mr. Rahman sent in to apply for the job as Consul General in Dubai after the 2022 general elections, when it was payback time. Now, Consul General Zia Rahman, his monthly earnings total, and we're doing the math now. Check my math, Consul General. $45,110.26. Now let's break this down. The people are paying $9,531.38 per month for his children school fees to go to a private school in Dubai on his request and on the cabinet's acceptance and approval on the 5th of December 2023. Zia Rahman, Mr. Zia Rahman, Consul General, Grenada Consulate, Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Dear Mr. Rahman, this letter serves to inform you that the Cabinet and its meeting on the 2nd of October 2023 approved as a special case the payment of $114,376.62 per annum to you as financial assistance to cover the cost of annual school fees for your children. Please note that payment will commence from the 1st of September. It was retroactive. And it was signed by Roxy McLeish Hutchison, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Folks, they approved and call it a special case, paying Mr. Rahman almost $10,000 a month just for his kids to go to a private school in Dubai. First of all, he can afford to pay for his children to go to school. He's over there, he's carrying on his business on our time, right? There are so many families right here on island as we speak who cannot afford to send their children to school, public school. Some can send them 2 days a week. And for various reasons, food, and we know our school feeding program is practically no more again. So parents have to find food, breakfast and lunch to send their kids to school with. If they can't send them to school, right? Transportation, shoes, clothing, and our taxpayers' money. Some of these same people who cannot afford to send their children to school is helping to pay for Mr. Rahman's kids to go to school in Dubai at a private school. Our taxpayers' money. And even though he has a salary, his salary is $17,390.88. That's his salary, his monthly salary. His monthly rent is $18,188. So his rent is more than his salary, only because he's not paying his rent. We are paying his rent. Where you ever hear your rent more than your salary? It don't happen, right? Totaling $45,110.26 monthly. His total package, his compensation package. How's that for basic math, Mr. Rahman? Which brings his annual compensation package to $541,323.12, more than $500,000. We are paying him. Folk, Consul General Zia Rahman earnings is 65% of the Dubai's budget. So whatever is budgeted for Dubai on a whole, 65% of that is Mr. Rahman's compensation package, leaving 35% to take care of business at the consulate in Dubai, rent, utility, bills, stationery, staff, etc. That's off the top of my head. His earnings alone is quarter of the entire trade budget, meaning all of the diplomatic offices, locally and at home and abroad. Quarter of that budget belongs to Mr. Rahman alone. So you understand why he's throwing shade. He has a stake in this thing that the NDC remain in office. And likewise, the mascot and all of them who, you can't say anything, they want to press their knees in your neck, so you shut up. They call you names, they say things. Water off my back. Water off my back. If they realize that you're too bad, I feel like a dashing leaf in the rain. So you can understand. But the funny thing is, let me give you a little story. They block me, all of them block me. So I can't see what they're saying. And they're saying the things out there among themselves. They sing into the choir. Somebody would snapshot it and send it to me. That's how I get to see, because I don't really care. I don't want to see anywhere yet. You understand? So I'm blocked. So Mr. Rahman, you think he would throw shades out there and get away with it? The point is, sir, you are abusing the situation, spending our monies to send your children to school when there are Grenadians who are paying you that can't afford to give their children a proper meal on a day, much less to send them to school. Much less to send them to school. The immediate former Consul General received a total package monthly of 3,000 US dollars, an equivalent of 8,000 EC dollars. Imagine that in comparison to 45,000, 8,000, no. In comparison to $45,110.26, say monthly. If that is criminal, if that a criminal, I don't know what is. A difference of $37,110.26. Imagine that, to do the same job. And you see this 8,000 EC dollars? The government of Grenada wasn't paying it. Citizens in Dubai was paying the bills and the compensation package to the former Consul General. We are paying a difference of $37,110.36 monthly to Mr. Rahman, who, as he said, is an IT specialist. I ain't see nothing about foreign diplomacy, nothing there in his bio that earned him that job. Annually, the immediate former received a total of $96,120, while Zia Rahman is receiving $541,323.12. 500, and forget the rest. 541,000 in comparison to $96,000 annually. A difference of $445,203.12. I mean, come on. A difference of 445,000 How did I do, Mr. Rahman, with the math? I got it right. I got you right. This is highway robbery. Robbing the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And the cabinet of Grenada facilitated that, signed off on that. Yes, Mr. Rahman, we agreed to give you the 9,000 for your kids. What about your constituents? What about the people in your constituency who cannot afford to eat a proper meal or to feed their kids a proper meal on a day? Who cannot afford to send their kids to school? Who kids have to drop out from school to help the parents, the older ones, to take care of the younger ones? This is happening in today's world in real time. Kids dropping out of school at the age of 14 and 15 to go look for a job because their parents cannot afford to send them to school. Only I know shame. Folks, in closing, to the Governor General, Dame Cecile Lagrenade, and the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, we the people is calling on a commission of inquiry, forensic auditing into the National Lottery Authority and its board of directors. Why was Mr. William Batiste made to resign? We call for the dismissal of the managing director, Ms. Cindy Henry, and the board of directors while the inquiry takes place. Gravel and concrete, it's a rat race taking place there. Vikey Vike, Peckamel, everybody doing what they want, their own thing. Playing up in the people's monies. We also call on the forensic auditing of that institution. The board of directors of the Grenada Development Bank, this bank is the People's Bank, not the NDC Bank. The bank is barely able to hold its head over water as we speak. We call on the government to hold a commission of inquiry or to have forensic auditing in that bank. We need an investigation into the board of directors of the Grenada Development Bank. The National Organizing Committee and the government of Grenada, we the people are yet to receive an audited report on the $22.5 million spent as promised. There were talks of missing monies, some $500,000 from the funds. I bet you there are much more. The people need forensic auditing of the National Organizing Committee and the $22.5 million allocated. The Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation and Transportation, Ministry of Andy Williams and his officers, Don Hosford, Ms. Bassessa, and the Permanent Secretary, Ms. Nicole Clark. The movement of monies in that ministry and the widespread corruption that takes place there. Even the Minister of Finance came out and said that what's going on there is illegal. We call for an investigation to Andy Williams separately on the Cliff Road project, the bribery, $115,000, 100 in cash and 15 towards restoring his pickup truck, a white Isuzu pickup truck T4254 project contract in exchange for the Cliff Road project contract. The Minister of Carriacou and Petit Martinique Affairs and the ministry and the constituency office, Tevin Andrew, for corruption and fraud. The minister said just before election, he had $2 in his account today. He's saying he's set for life There are allegations of purchasing of property. Well, the purchasing of property is not an allegation. That is in the registry. That is in the Lancipines of Carriacou, so to speak, right? But there are allegations of owning of boats and boss and truck and you name it, speedboat, schooners. Are we just going to sit by and let these allegations fly by and not investigate what is going on? Minister Karen James and the constituency office in Guava and the many missing monies from that office in lump sum 30,000, big monies. 3 times the allegations of purchasing of $1 million property in Maran St. John's bought under her sister's name. I've seen the conveyance for her under her sister's name. Minister of Fisheries, Minister Lennox Andrew, and accusations of him now owning a fleet of fishing trawlers, longline fishing trawlers. Question to the minister, how many fishing trawlers do you own at the moment? Typo and Fimber Thomas. There were several allegations of embezzlement at Kaipo, of Kaipo funds and the corruption involving Fimber Thomas. Mr. Thomas was removed and transferred to another department, the Ministry of the Blue Economy, and we've heard nothing since. Now it's alleged that Mr. Thomas, Fimber Thomas, was the government's main man in there with all the different names on the different companies, the African companies that were the ghost ones as well. He was their main man. Who knows? He's probably still doing it because they're in office and they can do what they want. The people are calling for a commission of inquiries and forensic auditing of these government departments and the statutory bodies. Now, this is a question for the Customs and Excise Division. Questioning, the concern is the cement that came in from Saudi Arabia, from Saudi, consigned to the company Icon, which is the Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister, Teddy St. Louis. He's the managing director and owner of the company. Why was the first entry cancelled? And why was the invoice on the second entry changed to 60% less? The question is, isn't that fraud? Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. At least we're trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. And remember, a better Grenada is possible. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.